Hello, everyone. Welcome to our pilot edition of the Simpletin podcast. My name is Emmanuel Iwe, and I'm the management and operation consultant here at Simpletin Consulting. Here with me are two young professionals thriving in their field and our awesome guests. I would like them to introduce themselves.
Hello, everyone. My name is Omari Salaki Mika, and I'm the brand designer here at Simpletin Consulting.
Hello everyone, my name is Osaze and I'm the data insights analyst at Simpletin Consulting.
For today, sit tight because we're diving deep into what it takes to launch, lead, and grow a startup. And we'll be hearing from someone that has made this happen before. Here with me is Mr. Timei Ayoromi, the founder of our amazing Simpletin Consulting. So, Mr. Timei, the floor is open, and I would like to start with a very important question: where it all began from the roots, from the beginning. What inspired you to start Simpletin Consulting?
Thank you very much, guys, for being here. I think before I answer that question, so just hold that question.
Okay.
So I just want to talk to you guys out there. One of the things most people don't talk about is starting anything can be very challenging. And today I am actually starting something new, which is doing a recording. And that's really about overcoming fears. So I am doing this now. And I'm just overcoming the challenge of actually looking into a camera, which I am doing right now. So sit back and enjoy our conversation as we go through what Simpletin's like and what these amazing talents here do for the work that we're doing at Simpletin. Cool. So back to you.
Yeah, I asked what inspired you to start Simpletin Consulting.
I think when you talk about what inspired you to start, I always use this word about it being a journey, right? A lot of people who found things or who started anything, sometimes you could start a business as Simpletin is by registering a company because you have an idea. You could start Simpletin by having a social media page. But that's really not the starting point. That is really not the starting point for any business. The starting point and where you actually do feel the inspiration is when you identify where you come into solving a problem that exists, right? And usually when you identify that problem, there are two things that are involved. One, it's either you're looking to provide a solution to people to help them become, less stressed about this particular problem. Or two, you have a passion that you believe if you execute would benefit and make an impact in the world that you're in. So those are the two ways you kind of start that whole journey. So for me, Simpletin is basically a baby that I looked at. And the moment that I would say that I became inspired to really pursue Simpletin was when I realized who I really was, what my talents and gifts were. And I'll take you back to what that is. Growing up as a young guy, I've always been very good at being strategic. So when I have conversations with people, I know how to break things down and have that simplified conversation to say, you know what, it's not as overwhelming as you think. Can we just do this in steps? And executing things that way over and over and over again, where you help individuals at a very key point in their lives, but you don't really understand it to be something that's a gift. You just think it comes naturally. But at the time you're helping out, that individual needed that information. They needed that guidance. They needed that, step-by-step approach to be able to achieve the goal they're looking for. So I got to that point where I had to admit to myself that my way of thinking is not normal. My way of processing information is not the norm. And in that space, I started to accept that, dude, this is your talent. this is what you've been called to do, because all you do in life is to give people clarity about where they need to go next, what they need to do, which equals them growing in whatever space that is. So for me, Simpleton was inspired by identifying what my purpose was in helping people gain clarity, grow to become better versions of themselves. And for me, that's really what drives me and keeps me going. Because every time someone moves from A to B, it's a moment that I rejoice and I'm happy because I was able to contribute to that in their life.
You've already touched some of my questions, but anyways,
Okay.
I would ask for the people listening, how do you get to discover your purpose?
How do you get to discover your purpose? I would say two things, all right? Reflection and being self-aware. So when I described all the things that I was doing in the past, it was because I was reflective. I was going back to these things that I keep doing that come effortlessly. Is this me? Is this something? Do I have something there? Why are you always passionate about someone else's success, someone else's growth? Why do you always want to see people move from A to B and just become better? So reflection helps you identify really in patterns who you as an individual is and what you do that is different to what others do. So that's number one. Also being self-aware, you identify your strengths, your weaknesses. So I pay attention to what I'm really good at. I pay attention to what I'm not good at. And I think the sweet spot of knowing exactly what your purpose is when you identify what those strengths are and how they make an impact to someone else's life. When you get to that point, you then realize that you've just arrived at what you need to be doing for purpose.
Okay, so when I asked what inspired you, you mentioned two things that usually inspire businesses, which is problems, them identifying a problem, or your passion or purpose. Now, I would like to ask for Simpleton, did you identify any problem that you wanted to solve in society that also made you to pursue Simpletin Consulting?
Yes. So I'll say it's a two-way thing because at Simpleton, we always talk about the 360 degrees growth.
Okay.
Right? And I'll explain what that is. Obviously we talk about the Simpleton effect, which is really what this 360 is. So the 360 basically talks about the individuals that I help gain clarity. When you start a business or you start something, one of the biggest issues you come against is not having clarity. I want to do something. I want to start a business, but I don't know what to do. You've identified you need to start a particular business, but you still don't know how to go about it. Now, this is me who would help you break it down easily in conversations, telling you, oh, this is how you can go about the business. This is what you need to do. Obviously, I have a background in business, which is what I studied, but we can always come to that. So in doing that, I realized that most founders find it very difficult to either get started or just gaining clarity. Now, getting started is what? I have a lot of energy. I am someone where you speak to me, you feel my energy. Number two, I'm very logical and a great thinker. So these two things are the things that I realize that people that want to either start a business or a career struggle with. They come out of uni, they're not really sure what to do with their degree. They're not really sure what positions they should start with. How do I start this life? Right? So that's number one. I am that talent who can help you think through that. You then have the other people who have gained experience or just at that point of, I want to start a business, but still don't know how to go about it. Right? So it's a clarity and the energy to go is what Simpleton is really about, which is why we say we feel your growth journey, because we want to give you that clarity, but we also want to give you that push. And that's really what I identified. And so in identifying that, what I decided to do was we need to first upskill young professionals, help them gain that clarity, let them start from knowing who they want to become. In that way, they will be passionate to help the businesses who need that growth, that push, that sense of someone else is thinking about this problem for me, trying to give me clarity to move forward. Because right now, I don't know if I'm going left, right, center, you know? So that is what Simpleton is and what I identified as the problem that we're trying to solve.
Okay, before I go to my next question, now you said a lot of things that were quite inspiring. I would ask, when you start something, you're not seeing the end. How do you keep going? Because I know many businesses that they start up and they have lots of challenges. They wind up, they invest a lot of money into it. They are not seeing the money coming out. And even what they have defined as success to them, they are not seeing it. But they keep pushing. So how do you keep pushing when you're not seeing what you have defined as success or when you're not even seeing money? How do you keep moving?
Well, that's an interesting one. But 1 minute, let me just let me drink some hot cocoa, all right? Okay. Whew, how do you keep going? Okay, so I'll talk to you about this scenario. Well, something that happened where I had this moment in my mind, and to be honest, that's really what keeps me going. So I was in the kitchen, washing the dishes one day, in the UK. And I remember I had loads of clothes piled up, to fold up. So I had my second son and my daughter. My wife had traveled at that time. And it was just taking me forever to do these chores. And this was maybe 9 o'clock. And I still had meetings that I needed to have. I still had things I needed to write up. I just knew it was going to be a long night till 2, 3. And I thought, fine, consulting is nice. You're earning a good living and all. But very soon, these kids are not going to be around. Are you going to be standing doing dishes, folding clothes? Is this what life is going to be like in 10 years' time? You log into meetings, no purpose, nothing. And to be honest, at that time, Simpleton had already started. And this is why I talk about the fact that there are phases to actually starting a business and why it's a journey.
Yes.
Because at that particular point was when I decided that, look, listen, stop running away from your purpose. This is what it is. Take it on now and realize that this is going to make an impact if you don't want to remain folding clothes and washing dishes for the rest of your life. And I think every time I come through challenges, I just picture myself washing dishes and folding clothes. And it's like, who's that going to impact? This is not what I do. This is not my purpose. If it was my purpose to help someone fold clothes, then I'll do it passionately. But this is not the life for me. And at that time, I realized that every time I hit, these, you have to think about, why am I doing this? I'm doing this because this is the purpose, to make other people better, to help other people grow, using my talent, using my gifts, and not to go back to folding clothes.
Oh, service. That's quite interesting. My co-hosts are boiling questions, so
Yeah, I have a ton of questions to ask you.
All right,
Well,
there we go.
let's start here. I started off as an intern at Simpleton, and when I started, I remember not having any direction. I was lost. I was all over the place. I applied for a specific role, but then I ended up as the brand designer here at Simpleton. And so far, it's been an amazing journey. You've really been a mentor. You know what you said about clarity? You gave me the clarity that I needed to get to this spot that I'm at now. And I'm currently loving and enjoying the journey. But my question is, what advice would you really give out to people out there that are starting their business, like in terms of branding? Because I know we're big on branding at Simpleton. We're big on having everything consistent and cohesive. What would you tell people out there, or like individuals or businesses, why would you advise them to have a solid branding for their businesses?
I think for me, again, it comes back to who I am as an individual. I've always been someone who will always have something that I like, something that I'm consistent with. So if I have a brand that I like, I technically just buy into that. And what I realize is that branding is quite psychological,
Yeah.
because if you know what someone delivers and how they make you feel, the problems they solve, you're likely going to go back to them to continue business.
Yes.
Right. So at Simpleton, it's kind of like your identity. It's not just the logos, the colors. Yeah, those things are part of your identity. Like, for instance, I like bright colors. Sometimes people say it's too bright, but it makes me feel good. I don't like to go into rooms with too much of a, dark colored person. No, I like to. So like in the UK, people wear a lot of black, gray, navy, especially like when it's dark. Wintertime, it gets dark about maybe 3:30 in the afternoon.
Sounds true.
Exactly. And people are still wearing black, navy. I'm like, no, it's already dark as it is in the afternoon. So when I come out, I have orange, I have red, like so for me, people know me through that identity, that he has a certain way he likes things. So if you translate that into business, when you look at all the big businesses like Apple, Spotify, there is something that you get from them, and it's about what they actually transpire to you, the message of being able to tell you that if you engage our product or our service, it will make you feel a certain way, it will solve a certain problem. So you have almost like an unsaid promise, kind of,
Mm.
that this is what you do. And anytime they spot you, they know that, oh, this is what these guys do. So I'm going to go there. So I think branding is very, very important. And to be honest, 2025 and beyond, because of social media, people have communities. People want to follow stuff because now you can access things online. So it has even become even more important that you need to have an identity as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, that people should be able to identify what you stand for, your values, your vision, your colors, whatever it is. They need to be able to look at it and say, yes, that's why we go there. That's why we like your content. That's why we like your products, your services. So that's why I'm really big on simpleton. Like simpleton, as we say in the word, um, simple. We want to simplify things, right? So that's kind of how it is. So in simplifying things, we give you clarity. We give you the best approach, step by step, to be able to get there. And I think that's really why branding is important, is when people come to you, they know we're going to give them clarity. We're going to give them step by step, which then gets them to grow, to get to the end point, that they're looking for at that point in their journey. Might not be the final point, but at least it will help.
I've always wondered where the name Simpletin came from. And now I just got the clarity that I didn't know that. So you see, it's just
And I'll tell you what, there's a little bit more to that, because
really.
because yes, you have the simple, side of it, which is giving clarity, making things simple. But I also wanted to infuse the African side to it, because I am, I'm Nigerian British. Like, I like to class it that way, right? Not the other way around. So yeah, Nigerian British. So I always want my African side to be the forefront. So when I was always in meetings, colleagues call me Timian, you know, versus Timain, So I thought, how do you infuse that combination of a little bit of sound like it's English, which is simpleton, but it's actually coming from an African twang? Or if I wanted to say something to Osaze, for instance, I might say, say, that's a very simple thing. That's pretty much what it is. There's an African beat to it. So that's why it ends with an N, the TIN. It's almost like Pidgin English, simpleton, that kind of stuff. So that's the additional thing to
Oh,
to the name.
that is too cool. That is actually really, really cool. So overall, would you say that Simpletin basically embodies who you are as a person, branding wise?
Yeah, I think 1,000%. Yeah, I think 1,000%.
That is amazing. So, was there any point during the course of running Simpletin that you just felt the branding needs to evolve. The branding needs to, or like the brand needs to have a little shush, a little bit of an upskill.
Mm.
Was there any point?
Yeah, I think it was probably when Osaze started.
Really?
Yeah. I think it was when Osaze started. I think what Osaze brought was the identity that I had been searching for at Simpleton. So we met at Now, at a career fair at Now, and he walks up, it was just like at my side, quietly telling me, oh, he just asked me a question, oh, are you looking for data analyst? He wants to. So we had a chat.
Mm.
And also Fatima, who's not here. I'm sure you guys will get to meet her soon. But he had the kind of what we call the persona, right? Of who a Simpleton kind of embodies.
Yes.
And I thought to be able to translate to the client why these talents would help you grow and why they are who they are, I need to kind of be intentional about the branding
Yes.
to make sure that the identity fits what we're trying to achieve. So, he came in as an intern and then obviously became a data insight analyst. So I think that was probably the point where, even though it's been something on my mind, that was the point where I had to really make sure it was, a big deal.
All right, I'm actually really happy that this conversation went into branding. I've just been soaking up the entire thing. So as I'm looking at you, I've just been seeing this logo. It has been on my mind. Usually in consulting firms, it's usually just their main, yeah, they use as their logo. And that was kind of one of the things that piqued my eye at the career fair because I couldn't tell that this was a consulting company because I passed this style a couple of times. I was looking for consulting companies at the career fair, but then I was like, oh, people are crowding space. Let me see what's on the bus. And then I saw that, okay, this is a consulting company. So actually just want you to walk us through the logo. I don't want you to talk, I think we have a branded item here. So I just want you to walk us through your vision behind the star and the clubs. Just let you go on.
Okay. Has anyone got internet here on the phone?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. Okay. So type in club,
Okay.
meaning of club, or what club signifies, and then I'll just talk you through everything. So I think this was as is kind of talking about, the whole piece. Okay. So let's get started. So as an individual, I like things to have meaning, right? I like to be able to explain why something came about. So the star is typically, what a star is. You know what a star is. A star shines, which is what a simpleton talent is really. Shines. We shine. So that's really the reason. So if you're able to look into the meaning of the club, that I will be able to tell you more. But also I'm quite creative. So as you can see, it's not designed to have a typical star kind of shape. So I got to really be creative on that, but that's pretty much what we're trying to say is Simpleton talents are people who always shine. And if they can bring that light to your business is actually going to experience what we say, which is growth. So that's number one. So I'll move on to the color before you read out what that is. So if you guys, listen to what Maureen is going to say,
All right.
without me, reading it out myself. So yeah, go on.
Okay, yeah. So the symbolic meaning is often linked to growth, creativity, and action. The symbol resembles a clove or a three-leaf plant, and it symbolizes luck and nature. It can also represent ambition, enterprise, and energy. Yeah.
So does that answer the question?
Yeah, I think it means this. So it means this. Captures everything that we do. Energy, enterprise, everything.
So I think it just confirms and validates, what. Yeah, you're going to speak about the color because I was going to ask you anyways. For me, you have blue there. The one I want to know is the yellow. Okay, so it kind of like the kind of gold. So let's check that again. So what does gold signify? And then we'll go to what navy signifies.
I think while she's checking that, I just want to clarify, is there any hidden meaning behind the number of point? Is that just
No, that was just creativity.
okay?
Yeah. So that was just me creative. Again, I think the reason why I done it that way is I don't want anything that will look similar, uniqueness. So that's why.
Okay, so there are multiple meanings of the color gold.
Okay.
The color gold symbolizes quite a lot of things. The first is wealth and prosperity. The second is power and royalty. Third is purity and perfection. Fourth is illumination and wisdom. And fifth is success and achievement. And I think the one that really symbolizes what we do is success and achievement and purity and perfection. Because here, under success and achievement, it says gold medals or trophies are given to winners and champions. So it also represents victory, excellence, and personal triumph. So there's that one. And then purity and perfection, gold doesn't tarnish, which means it is a symbol of purity, incorruptibility, and enduring value. In alchemy, gold is the ultimate goal. Turning base metals into gold represents the pursuit of spiritual transformation and enlightenment. I don't think that lower bit like really aligns with us, but at the end of the day, it still symbolizes like riches, abundance, victory, excellence, and again, personal triumph. And that is what we're all about. Those really do fit into our core values as simple things.
Yeah, and I think everything, to be honest, everything also aligns to like who I am, because you will have some spiritual growth when you're on this journey, right?
Yeah.
It impacts every side of you, personally, business wise. So yes, that's the reason I chose gold. And obviously now about the club. So everything that is described in the logo in terms of how it looks actually depicts who we are, and it's intentional. Because again, I also believe in, there's a saying that call those things that be not as though they were. So it's to call you, who are the simpleton talents, to represent what the logo is. You are to be successful, you're to be wealthy, you're to be someone who gives clarity, you're to be someone who grows. So every single thing that it talks about is what it depicts. And this is why I talk about the 360 degree, and why we also emphasize on the simpleton effect, meaning that if simpletons are experiencing what this logo is, clients would also experience what the logo is saying. Does that make sense? Yeah, it makes sense.
It really does. That is like so powerful. The fact that you do not just pick colors at random that are just like vibrant and attract people. You also choose something that would eventually speak into the lives of people that are going to work with you. And then they will carry on and go on to do life with. That is incredibly powerful. And it truly shows how much of a servant leader that you are. Because I remember your speech from the internship award dinner where you gave a speech on servant leader, and it was such a powerful talk. It was such a powerful presentation, and it just goes on to show the type of founder that you are, and it shows that you are not only an entrepreneur at heart, but someone that genuinely wants to see other people grow. And then that sort of feeds into one of my other questions, which is how did branding per se help in shaping the vision of building Simpleton from where it was to where it is right now?
I think that's a very important, because you see, the thing about the branding is you hold yourself up to what you've created. So because you did this promise that this logo says, because you say to, your colleagues, your team members, that this is what we do, because you say to your clients, this is what we do, this is who we are, that whole thing keeps you kind of nailed down to making sure you're meeting up to what you've said, what you said. And this is what the branding is every single time. You don't all of a sudden start wearing pink. At the point you do that, you're rebranding.
Yes.
And it needs to be said what that message is now, because it's a different message.
Yeah.
It has to be clear.
It has to be very clear.
Mm.
So that's really the main thing that has really brought us from where we were
Mm.
as simpletons, that we weren't intentional about the branding as we are now. So because I've upheld myself to what the brand was supposed to be, based on the logo, the colors, the values, it's now coming to fruition to really say, yeah, this is what we are, and we have to be accountable to this, because every time people see this now, it's pretty much, this is you, right? This is what you said you do, and that's that. Like, not run away from your responsibilities, I guess. Is to, face the challenges, face the failures, the days it don't go well, hold your hands up and just keep it ticking.
Yeah. And I think our core values go beyond just like, oh, sorry, I mean, our branding just go beyond the visuals. It goes beyond the laptop care, the colors, the logo. It goes beyond everything that you can see. It really, I think, it's not even I think, I know, and we've seen time and time again when we've helped a client, it really does feed into how we deliver, how we help them get to that point where people come to us where they like have a sort of idea of what they want to do. But then instead of just giving them what they need, we end up giving them a discovery session. So Emmanuel said one time, a discovery. Oh, what was it they said?
A discovery session for the discoverer.
Exactly. So our core values are really fed into the lives of our clients, the kind of experience that they have with us once they are working with us. And yeah, I think that's all I have to bother you with.
Perspective that they have of us.
Yeah, but like, I think I've dug deep enough in terms of branding today, and I'll just be handing over to Isazi.
It's my thought. So one thing I want to ask is, I want to get your perspective of how you came about this certain mindset. I know when I came into Simpletin as a data insights analyst, this was my first experience in that role. So I wasn't really confident. I'll do the analysis, get the data, and I'll just say, okay, Mr. Timain, it's your choice. You can do what you want to do. And I remember one day you called me to a meeting and you said no, that I should give my recommendation. And I was kind of worried of giving my recommendation because I didn't want to go across any wahala based on what I said. And then I remember I said something. They said that you want me to fail as fast as possible. Like, you don't want me to be scared of failure, but if I'm going to fail, I should fail fast. Because I did just want to be responsible for a decision that then backfired on the company. But you called me to a meeting and then you said I should be confident in my recommendations. I should not just skip the options. I should say what I recommend and why I recommend and what I recommend. So I want to ask you, how did you get to that mindset about not being scared of failing, but just failing fast, moving on, or just boosting from there?
I think that came from working, so working on so many projects. I'm sure you guys have heard of Agile, the Agile methodology, and all that kind of stuff. I think that's one of the, I guess the manifesto, mantra, whatever it is, that Agile kind of depicts. Like, you have to kind of get things going and fail. But I think what that did was, in the period I was gaining my experience and working on projects and seeing how projects were failing and seeing how I was failing, it really kind of dawned on me that, look, the faster you just get over the fact that you can't be perfect, get it done. It's like what we're doing now. This is our first pilot. It took a while. I was trying to, get Chibidom, and I didn't even Chibidom was kind of, worried that things might not go. And I said, look, let's just get it out of the way.
Yeah.
Let's just do it. Let's just do it. And I'm sure right now, we've done it. It's over and done. Because so all failings of today becomes 11 years exactly. Which is why we have the Kaizen, right? Which is a philosophy that we also follow, because that follows on the back of failing fast. If you fail, you then need to learn from why you failed, what you can do better next time. And that approach also helps me as an individual become better, grow from who I am. So if I can kind of send that same message to Simpletons, it will also help them improve other businesses in terms of clients and make them become better. So not only are you as an individual becoming better because you failed, you've learned, you've moved on, you've now corrected your mistake, but you then transfer that same energy, that same mindset to how you deliver for a client. If you didn't do it well the first time, if the client said it wasn't great, then learn from it and move on, make it better. The whole thing is we want to see them go. We want to see them become better. And you as an individual, you want to go. So I kept that mindset every time I had a bad project. Every time I wasn't doing things great, I just had to kind of just, realize that I move on. What can I do better next time? So I'll give you an example. I remember, this is, guys, well, this is for you. Um, I remember I worked on this project, consulting on this project, and the client asked me to come up with an approach. Just like you, that was the first time I'd ever heard come up with an approach. I was like, I'm used to you just giving me stuff, telling me, let me just do, and I know what to execute. But now you're putting me in a spot where I am telling you how you need to go about this stuff. And because of fear, I dilly-dallied, I procrastinated so much that it ended up in ending my contract at the time, which wasn't something great. It wasn't a great experience, but I knew why it happened. But before it actually ended, I remember, and this is also something, to segue, but this is also something that is important about having the right people around you. I remember my wife saying, look, why are you worried? This thing, you can do it. So why are you so blah, blah, blah? So then I put up the approach just a couple of days before I had this meeting that my contract was going to be terminated, right? And when I had that meeting, they were like in awe. But at that point, they'd already made that decision, right? So they'd already made the decision to have the conversation with me. But now I'm putting up something. And what that did was after that, I realized that, wow, could have done this. I could have done this. Don't be afraid. You could have just failed at as early as possible. They would have told you what they wanted and you would have continued rather than procrastinating the whole thing, And this is why as Simpletin, we didn't have the approach.
That's exactly just what I wanted to ask you. Yeah, on next.
So this is why the approach is very, very important.
Okay, so since you've gone about the why, what do you think are the advantages of someone that's using an approach and then someone that's not using the approach to achieve the exact same task?
I think an approach is strategic. It gives you the opportunity to learn, right? It gives you also a structure. So if you're going to change something, you know where you need to change. It's almost like saying, you have a car, there's an engine, you just did something and then it started working when it was faulty, but you don't know what you did. So when you go back again, you don't have an approach to how you got to the solution record, right? Then you just try again, but this time it still didn't work, right? But you thought, oh, but this is what I did, but you were missing some things because now you're guessing. So an approach gives you that structure to have an intentional outcome that you're looking for, but it also gives you the ability to be flexible because next time you can tweak and change, which is what we do all the time. Again, with our Kaizen philosophy. Yeah. So it kind of gives us that kind of, ability to tweak things. And also what I found in my, working experience is that doing that for clients gives them engagement. They are able to follow their own journey. They are able to follow what you are trying to do in a very simplistic manner, because sometimes when you talk to people, people forget. People want to see something. They want to say, okay, this is how you say. So have we finished step 1? Yes. Can we move on to step 2? Yes. Okay. Step 1, these are the things we met. This is how we're going to do it and all that kind of stuff. So that's why the approach is needed. It gives you that advantage and it gives us the advantage to what most people do.
Okay. Well, I think I'll ask the love question.
Okay, Mr. Time, your time is fast spent.
Yes.
And for me, one of the major things I've learned from our approach is that apart from all the things you have said, it makes work faster. It makes work faster. There's something that you usually do that I'd like to ask because, I think we might have to have another episode of this because there are a lot of questions we want to ask. A lot of things that people want to know to help them also start their own business and challenges that they need to overcome. You have the ability to switch personalities. You can come into, now you're giving us your African style. You can come into a meeting and then you have the ability to say, okay, this is person, this is how I'm going to relate to this person. This situation, this is how I relate. And it seemed like you have becoming a master at it. So how do you do that? And is it something that CEO usually do?
I don't know. It might be a yes and no answer to that. I like to think about perspectives. Okay. So how is this person seeing things so that I can approach them the way that it will be valuable to them.
Okay.
Right. And then also I look at my perspective to what's going on. Right. So what is the outcome? So perspectives is a very big part of that whole thing.
This is actually a deep question because you even do it when it comes to hard talk, and you've had a hard talk with person, but that doesn't mean anything. You're cool, you're chill. You can still even take the person out, make the person enjoy, but you just had a hard conversation.
Yeah. But I think obviously we need to end. Yeah. But on that note, one of the things I'll say to anybody that is doing business, you have to learn to perfect, drawing the line between business and being personal.
Okay.
You can't really mix the two. So, they say a lot, and until you do it, you then realize, which is why I would say sometimes your family and friends are not really your customers. You might have a few from them, but you can't build an empire with them. So which is why, because there's that personal thing to that. They might not understand why you do things a certain way and why things have to, unless they're business people themselves.
Okay.
Right. So I think that's, pretty much.
Yeah, we'll continue from here in our next episode. Thank you very much, Mr. Timini, for this insightful statement and the journey. I'm sure I've learned a lot. Maureen has learned, Osaze has learned, and other young professionals out there have learned. I think we have a lot of questions to ask, but no time. So we would continue from here on the next episode. Thank you once again, Maureen.
All right. So I guess that's a wrap for today's episode. Thank you guys so much. And thank you so much, Mr. Tiveri, for sharing your journey and your story with us. It was so insightful and it was really powerful to hear you speak.